Okay, so we're on live now. Good morning. No, good noon to everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Halloween. I'm so glad to be sitting here with my new dear friend. I feel like we just met not too long ago, but every time we meet up and have conversation, it is just fun and she's a delight. We have lots to talk about and lots to cover today. So, as you know, my name is Rachel Mateo, and my business, my way to help people with their health on the grander scope of things is called health, mood, fitness, nutrition, and soul care. And so, Lauren, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background, what it is that you are kind of going to delve into today. And then the biggest announcement is your new practice that you're opening November 14th.
That's right.
Okay, so go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll kind of kick us off with our short, brief, but fulfilling conversation today.
Right. What's hilarious though is that I've known Rachel from afar for a while, and she didn't realize I was one of the masses in her classes at the North Club and the Les Mills classes I used to take from her. But like you don't always go up to the instructor and everything and all that stuff. So it was pretty funny. So when we actually like bonded over that part of our lives, gosh, how many years ago? But anyways, I'm Lauren, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you, Rachel, for inviting me. I've been a PA for over 20 years now, and I've gone through an iteration where I've worked conventionally. There were some health challenges that I had and my family had that I just could not get settled by the conventional way. It didn't sit right with me. um, we didn't have the answers, so I started kind of really searching out of desperation and found, I hate to say the other side of medicine, I really do, because things are becoming more cohesive, but there was more of a root cause approach that I wasn't aware of and never was taught in conventional school. So it was something where I ended up being so enamored with that side. It really helped um, me and my family get better, get well, and really understand the tenets of health, which we'll talk about. But that was something that I ended up getting certified in. So it was like a whole nother master's for like 2.5 years additionally. And this was, gosh, 5, 6 years ago. And then went through my own struggles and had hit that lovely perimenopausal time and really got thrown for a loop. Had to find and search for a practitioner elsewhere. Literally 2.5 hours away is where I started getting my own treatment. And I was like, my gosh, we don't have that in this area. We don't have enough practitioners out there. 50% of the population is turning into going through the menopause transition. 50% of us are women, obviously. So we need so many more practitioners out there. So started just consuming all the things. And that's where I am today. I really, it's interesting because I was told there's a statistic out there that women at age 44, that's the most common time that they really reinvent themselves and they actually become entrepreneurs, which is really fitting because I'm turning 45 in this month coming up. So it really, it did hit me like that. It's become my passion and to approach it differently, which again, we'll talk about. But so yeah, PA for 20 years and just kind of reinventing myself and really trying to make a mark on the women locally, but also just throughout Pennsylvania with a very unique approach to health overall.
I think that's awesome, and it's fascinating that you say about the whole life change and reinventing yourself because I'm 42, so I'm not so far off that mark. And just I would say 41, like about a year ago, is when I kind of went a different direction, even with my career path in health mood, stepping away from the gym, stepping away from the things that I was doing, and just finding a more holistic way to help my clients. And it starts with how I help myself. Just like you said, it's kind of how you decided to take matters into your own hands, where you had to go to find the therapy that you needed, to find the help that you needed, and find answers. But then that caused you to then make the career switch, the difference in your path, because now what you did for yourself, you want to help others do. And it's the most beautiful form of help because we can realize our own transformation. And it's a gift that we're giving ourselves. And if we're not passing along that gift, um, it's it's
Right.
it's just a shame.
It's right. I mean, it's moving into your authentic self, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I tell my kids all the time. It's like, go into something that you truly love, but you know what? Don't be afraid if things shift over time because life shifts the way in which just the world shifts. I mean, we're all very, we're noticing that these days more than ever, but it's just something that you find that you're stepping into maybe an iteration of what you did before or something totally different. But whatever makes you feel best, whatever makes you sleep at night and and that you truly feel like you're making a difference, because any of us that are in any kind of health care field, that's the reason why we went into it. And when we didn't maybe know exactly what we were getting into when we went into certain positions or certain career paths. But you know what? That's everyone. I think everyone truly, the vast majority of people, whatever job they're doing, they want to help people, they want to serve people. But especially for healthcare, like that's truly an altruistic way that we're kind of built. We're all just listeners, maybe we're empaths, maybe we're, something that we really do have that special kind of feeling that in a vulnerable state, we want to be there for others. And sometimes, you're in something and it's fulfilling for a while, but then it might be something that like for other reasons it just changes and it becomes less fulfilling and you want to try something different.
Mhm. Yeah, we can't be afraid to pivot. We can't be one thing that I love to kind of help people figure out is their intuition. Help like figuring out what is that gut feeling? Where if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling unsatisfied at any point in your life, for any reason, there's always changes you can make. We can be our own best advocates, our own best health advocates, and just making that slight little 1 degree turn or a little bit of a pivot with our decision making or something that we thought was our path, and maybe you know what, be open to exploring other things. The a new window or door can open for you, and then that's where ease happens. That's where we feel it. We're in our flow.
And you have to be your own advocate these days. And I tell all my patients that in any facet that I'm talking to them about, and providers should never be upset that you're seeking second opinions. These days, things are so rushed.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, healthcare has become more of a business. So seeing more patients in a smaller amount of time, 10 to 20-minute appointments in most instances, they're doing their best, everyone's doing their best, but it's just we're set up in a way that's not sustainable, and everyone knows that. And declining fees, and that's something we're seeing in our area, and all of the health systems are going that in that direction. And so visits are going to be more expensive for less time. The providers on the back end, like I have this unique perspective of like knowing what we're taught in school, knowing where the deficits are. But when you're a provider, a prescribing provider, at least, like you say the Hippocratic Oath, and to do no harm is supposed to be the most importance in your career, and that's the benchmark. That's where you should really focus. Okay, I always give the risk benefits, and I always say to my patients, like, I want to be very open and real and honest with them. Like, this is what I would do if I were in that situation, because that's what they want to know. Like, they ultimately want to know, if you were in the same had the same decision to make. So you always want to talk about risks and benefits, but ultimately, if you want the benefits to outweigh the risks. And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about in this society is we're doing harm in the guise of doing no harm. It's the ignorance of not knowing about hormone therapy that is doing harm, and this lost generation of women that I feel bad, the 60 to 80-year-olds that have never had this shot of getting hormones because it was vilified. So something we'll talk about, but it's like that the providers don't have enough time in their day. They're not going to go home and read about study or a certain topic if they're not truly interested in it. If they have time to do that, they're going to do it in something that they're interested in. But they've also got full-time jobs at home because most have families and have kids or whatever else. So you go from your full-time job to your full-time job at home, and then at night you just want to fall in bed. And if you want to read something, it might be something to escape, and not something to read about something you're not interested in. So it just makes
Exactly.
sense.
And as you say that, I mean, I could totally see now why you decided to make this shift, because this is where your passion lies. This is how you see that you can most greatly benefit the women in and out of our area, and that's why in our area, your practice that's opening up on Atherton Street, North Atherton. But then the greater thing is doing stuff like this and getting information out there to the interweb, right? To people that are watching from all over. So I want to thank you, my audience that's taken the time to listen to this today, and the recording. I'll be sending out to those who can't be on it right now. So one thing I want to delve into, let's just jump into some stuff right here to get to the meat of it. I so on the way here, one person I love to listen to, Dr. Stacy Sims. She, for me, is a wealth of. She is just the top of the top knowledge of podcasts I could be listening to. Where I myself, I'm not. I'm premenopausal, as far as I know. As far as I know, I'm premenopausal. But at 42, I could very well be in peri and have these symptoms that I can't maybe put my finger on, or maybe is it this, is it that? I could still debate, well, it was the lack of sleep, or it was this stress, or it was the couple drinks I had, or it was maybe that not so good diet that day. So different things that can make us feel different on a daily occasion. But as we go through our late 30s, early 40s, up to mid 40s, and we know that chances are we're going to be in that perimenopausal stage at some point. So let's just, before we dive into that fully, let's talk about just hormones in general, because we hear people talk about hormones, and I don't know that everybody is fully clued into what exactly they are, how they work in our body, and how they can make us feel on a day-to-day basis.
So, I mean, hormones are messenger molecules. So they're literally like there are receptors on every cell of our body. And that's where it gets this piecemeal. Like people think that estrogen's just a sex hormone, it's just on the ovary, it's just, a female, it's in your uterus and your ovaries. Not the case. Like we have the most amount of estrogen receptors in our brain. So when we talk about hot flashes and night sweats, that's actually a brain issue related to your hormone, your estrogen receptors. So that's causing constriction of the vessels in your brain, which is then throwing off your thermoregulation. And that's what's making what I call your own personal summer. It's not a
Mm.
little bit, but it is. It's crazy because it emanates from inside, like it's a center core feeling, and you just feel this heat just all of a sudden. Thankfully, I only went through that for a stage of a couple weeks while I was kind of getting my hormones straightened out. But I wouldn't want to be dealing with that on a regular basis, and something like that actually increases your risk of uh, cardiovascular disease and strokes. But anyways, going back to hormones as like a blanket, they're really messenger molecules that impact every organ, every cell, every tissue in your body. So they need to be working optimally. We have these little memory core like energy factories in our cells called mitochondria, and we need to make sure that our cells are functioning, the receptors on the outside are functioning, the lipid layer on the outside of each cell is nice and buoyant and flexible. And that's where all this makeup of like your cells at your core are what make up your body, and you need to make sure that the receptors are functioning well, and then the hormones and the messengers are going into the cell to then create the impact that they make. So we think about hormones, not just sex hormones, which I hate to call them sex hormones, but that's what people kind of classify them as. You think about insulin, you think about thyroid, think about progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. Those are like the main ones that for us females we're going to be talking about. But estrogen's correlated with the drop of estrogen can correlate with insulin resistance. We want to be insulin sensitive. We want to have a nice lean body, not just cosmetically. People feel better when they're slimmer, but it's really a factor of less hormone um, creates this blood sugar rise. Your sugars can be off. You might feel hypoglycemic or have a low sugar, like periodically if you haven't eaten. Like that's a marker of kind of more ill health. With your thyroid, there's a lot of different symptoms that can overlap with these perimenopausal symptoms. So when you think about hormone optimization, you have to think about insulin, you have to think about thyroid really before you're thinking about your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone types of. So thyroid is considered the canary in the coal mine. So it's really often the first organ, the first hormone that gets impacted before the other chips kind of fall. So it's the predecessor before these bigger issues. So if you aren't balanced with your thyroid, which unfortunately there's so much rampant subclinical hypothyroidism, which means that your levels may be considered normal, which we can talk about what normal means, but that is really actually a lower functioning thyroid, which then will decrease, of course, your insulin sensitivity, your, metabolism, the way in which your neurotransmitters work, all of it. It's really you have to be balanced. And there might be some symptoms that wipe away, like your fatigue, like your hair loss, like your dry skin, like your constipation, anything that slows your body down. When you think of hypothyroidism, it's hypo is low, thyroid function. It's slowing everything down. You're feeling drier, you're feeling slower, your body's just not functioning as fast or as optimal as it should be. So that's where you really have to start. And that's not something that's taught in conventional medicine. We're taught to draw a TSH, which is what is a thyroid stimulating hormone. So it's what your brain is telling your thyroid or trying to stimulate your thyroid to produce your thyroid hormone, but it's not actually telling you what's going on in your thyroid. So that's all what we've learned conventionally. And if the TSH is off, then you might get what we call a free T4, which is the inactive thyroid hormone. So those are the only two markers that are ever really done, except for if you've been to an endocrinologist and you already have other symptoms, potentially they'll do a full thyroid panel, but it is still rare even in endocrinology. So that are those are the two like big hormones that we have to talk about along with the ones that people talk about with hormone replacement therapy.
Okay, got you. Yeah, and I mean, it can be confusing. I mean, certainly to know. I mean, and the layers of the different things that are checked as you are getting your blood tests, your labs. So when women are feeling off or not sure why they're feeling a certain way, I'm sure they're thinking, well, I'll get my blood tested, and it could be like just as simple as maybe not enough estrogen, not enough progesterone. But it's much deeper than that, is what you're saying. So why or how might a woman feel off, not quite feel right, and yet their labs are showing normal? And if you want to delve into what do normal labs even mean?
Yeah. So normal, the ranges, first of all, the ranges have changed over time to accommodate 95% of the people out there, which is crazy. It's like a moving target. You would think normal labs mean this to this, and that's it. So they don't. They move, and from lab to lab, they vary too, depending on the geographic location. So you'll see some variance there. And 95% of the population, do you want to be in that window with them, or do you want to be in a tighter, more optimal window where you actually feel great? So that's where normal comes in. Like with insulin, it's actually uh, the span is from 4 to 25. So if you have been plodding along, and number one, insulin isn't even a marker that is drawn often, which is a whole nother, you know, issue. People are going by glucose. So if your fasting glucose is this, it's actually could be blood sugar elevated related to stress and not what you're eating.
Mm,
So, I know personally people in my family where they eat pretty well, but their stress is not managed and their blood sugar keeps going up, but it's a stress induced effect and it's not their diet. So that's again another tenet of health. And I know Rachel, you talk a lot about that with your clients and patients too. So but it's really where labs need to be in this optimal window. So with insulin, if you do get an insulin level, which you will with me, and you'll be taught the exact way in which you get your labs done. It matters when you get it done. It matters if it's a stressful day. If someone cuts you off before you go get your lab, you better not go get that lab because it's going to make a difference.
wow.
It matters. It matters what you've had to eat. You should be drinking water, but you should not have coffee. You should not have anything else, which is something that they tell you. It also depends what supplements you're on. If you're on certain markers like biotin, which a lot of women are on in their multivitamin or a separate supplement because of hair, skin, nails, that actually interferes with the assay that they test the thyroid hormone. So there's so many different counterparts and things that I've been taught in the functional side that really do make a difference. And that's all the information that I empower my patients with. So lab values for insulin, 4 to 25. Guess what's optimal? 4 to 5. When you
Mm,
start plodding along and you're 18, 20, 25, and all of a sudden, guess what? You're diabetic. That didn't happen overnight, but that's what it seems like. Oh, you're immediately diabetic. It just changed. No,
mm,
it's been many years in the making. Same
yeah.
thing with the thyroid can be the same way where these optimal markers are so much of a tighter window if you even get to see what your active thyroid is because there can be a production problem, which is the T4. Most often, though, it's a conversion problem from T4 to T3. T4 is the inactive, T3 is the active. Very few people get actually a free T3 drawn. Then no one gets the antibodies drawn. The antibodies are whether or not you have Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is very, very common in women. It's going undiagnosed quite often. And that means that your body is attacking your own thyroid. And guess what? One reason why it might be attacking gluten.
Mm,
Gluten is a molecule that is very similar to the thyroid structure, and your
yeah.
body is seeing gluten as your thyroid tissue and is then hitting your thyroid. So
Mm,
that's just one way, but is that something that's known? Again, there is no like I appreciate that I went through conventional education first because I know what I've learned and I know what the doctors and the MPs and everyone learns, but it's frustrating that we can't all come together for the better part of the health of America and the world to say, look, we know a better way. Like, why do we have to be one side to another? And the one side, the patients are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And the other side, people are actually unraveling what's going on and getting healthier and healthier.
Yeah, and it's beyond time. And like you said earlier when we first started discussing, this is a newer thing that people are looking into. It's learning to be your own health advocate and digging a little bit deeper and finding unconventional medicine and not relying on the regular medicine to it's just going to be this answer, this solution, and it's not digging
Right.
to the root cause. Um, the studies and the research that have been done only recently on women, um, and how our body responds and how hormones affect us, and even how exercise and different fashions like affect our body as opposed to the male population. We are not, like I mentioned, Stacey Sims. She says we're not little men. We are,
Right.
a completely different being, right? So we have to
Right.
approach things differently. And so when you're saying, looking at our health and taking a deeper dive into the labs and taking a deeper dive into how things are affecting our blood, affecting our muscles, affecting our brain, our cognition. This is it's beyond important.
And
To
so much of the studies, yeah,
Yeah.
so many of the studies out there
Mhm.
have been based on men. Like when you
Yeah.
hear over and over, the one big discrepancy that we hear about is like the classic signs of heart attack, right? Classic signs
Mhm.
of heart attack for men, but we're atypical and our signs are going to be different. Okay, but what are those signs, and why aren't those being why aren't we educating the masses on what those signs are? It just doesn't mean that we're just different. Like, come on, we're half of the population here, and why isn't the monies out there, representing us? So much of the education up until now has been on um so much of sorry, the dog's here to visit. So much of the education is on men, traditionally, and that's what we're really trying to roll in more of the funding. And I think in the last administration there was a lot more of that, and we're seeing, but still, come on, that's like in the last less than 10 years. I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So, yeah, again, we are not little men. You're right. We don't function the same way. And in fact, it's crazy to even think that we as women we have, I've heard upwards of 4 to 10 times more testosterone in our body than estrogen. So to look at how testosterone in our body works and how it impacts us, and we have our testosterone that's made in our ovaries, like, you know, so many things that we just think about, like, okay, traditionally men, they're the testosterone like producers and we're the estrogen producers. And no, we both have those chemicals, those hormones, but they function differently in each of our bodies. So,
Mhm.
it's important for women to be heard. It's important for you to have a tighter window and know where your numbers need to be, and how to get to that point, whether it's, with comprehensive foundational principles like, of course, sleep, and of course stress management, and of course muscle building, and of course community and the social aspect of life, which women are typically a lot better at than men are. But all of those are super important, and the way in which we exercise, which I know, like, that's been a big focus of yours in the past, and you weave it obviously into your practice now. But what we need to be doing, we shouldn't be cardio heavy at these ages. We should be muscle heavy, and the reason is we start to lose that muscle 1% a year, starting pretty young. I mean, perimenopause on average is 10 year. Well, menopause is on average age 51, but perimenopause can start 10 years before,
Mhm.
so really anywhere between mid 30s, through, because a lot of women don't get to 51 with menopause. And it doesn't
Mhm.
matter, who cares what your menopausal age is, because some women also freak out because they might have an IUD, they might have had an ablation, they might have had a hysterectomy. So what is my menopausal age? It doesn't matter. Like, it's more symptom relief, it's protecting you with the hormones that you need to thrive. And the other kicker that people don't think about is when you've had, let's say you had a hysterectomy, but they left your ovaries, which is in a lot of instances. Well, we'll leave your ovaries and then you're going to be fine. Well, guess what, guys? When they do surgery, which has been surgery that I've been involved in my training, they clamp those arteries to the ovaries. Do you think that the blood supply has
Mhm.
anything to impact the levels in which your ovarian function has been left with? It's not the way that it was before the surgery. It's going to be dampened. So you might need some additional help, even though you still have some, estrogen and testosterone flowing through them. It's different, but that's not something that's ever brought up.
Right. Right. And I know that, one thing to delve into is the different things that we can do leading up to as you're approaching perimenopause, as you're approaching menopause, even well before that, we talk about kind of priming the body and making sure that, we're living the healthiest life that we can with what we've got. And like we said, stress reduction, making sure that we're doing things to calm the nervous system and we're taking time for ourselves to decompress, because we're in a kind of, if we're in a fight or flight stage too long, too often, with work and with the schedules and running around, and then plus exercise on top of that, our adrenals can go crazy. Focusing on not as much cardio, focusing on doing strength training, strength building, getting that muscle built before it starts to deplete. Because I forget what the age is that it starts to really drop down, the ability to build your muscle, and how your hormones affect that. It starts to decrease as you age. So if you can get a handle on it in your, well, at any age really, like in your 20s and 30s, start
Mhm.
building that muscles in your 40s. But any time you begin is a great time. So if you haven't started, start doing that strength training. Heavier strength training is what we need. And then you can focus on an anti-inflammatory diet, healing the gut, making sure your gut is healthy. Because that's where a lot of things, isn't it true that you say about your hormones, is that, are they created in your gut?
Yeah, so the gut is the second immune system,
Mhm.
and it's amazing that we think about this gut brain connection, and women, most women have an intuition, right? We have a deeper, stronger intuition than men do. Men do to some extent, but we really need to follow that. And I'm sure there have been times everyone knows, that they wish they would have listened to their gut, right? That is a real thing. The vagus nerve goes from brain to the gut, and it really impacts the way in which your body operates, and also the way in which, like, you respond to things. And when I've been asked by, patients in the past, how should I, should I do this for my body? Should I do this? I said, you need to sit there and think viscerally, see what your body responds to. Ask the question and see how your body responds. Because if your gut kind of turns over, like, you need to think about that, and maybe that's not the right course for you. I mean, it makes a big difference. And I know, as we get older, we do tend to finally, you know, uh, we finally realize that, and maybe we've gone through enough of those
Yeah.
reasons that you're
I
like,
think it
oh darn, I
develops.
wish I would have listened. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you tend to start in, and we step into, I feel like, in the fourth decade, the 40s is when you really step into your self. You feel less apologetic. You really kind of cut the crap out. You have your really solid, good group of friends. You have your family. You have your community, and you're willing to tolerate less crap, right? I just feel like so many of us, like, we get to that point, and maybe that's why there's so many more women, especially pivoting in their 40s, because they're like, all right, I'm done with this. This is what I really feel like is stepping into my own unique self. But what you talked about, the adrenal side, it's so important for women to know that when they're premenopausal, they're in their baby making years, they're fertile, they're in this ovarian centric time of life. But when you get into your perimenopause and menopausal years, you're actually in an adrenal centric. So the adrenal glands sit above your kidneys. And that's where the stress is so compounded. And that's where things might really kind of become off kilter, because we're changing from losing that ovarian function when the adrenals take over. So like you're saying, really making sure that you have those stress dips throughout the day. That's what I call them. If you're having a stressful day, you sit there for a second, you figure out maybe what kind of, like, quick visualization or breathing technique, whatever works best for you, and trying something out. Like, you're not going to know it off the first shot. Maybe journaling for 5 minutes. Maybe, I don't know, what else do you kind of recommend
Going
for
for a walk
your clients?
outside,
Walking. Yeah.
out in nature, just taking that
Yeah.
time to be out there, that does a lot.
It's so
And like you
important.
said, I love, we call it, stress dips.
Stress dips, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
and it
what
doesn't
I
have to be this
yeah,
overhaul. People think, "Oh, I need to learn how to meditate for 25 minutes or something."
right,
It can literally be just shutting your, phone off for a moment, or stepping away from the computer, or pulling yourself into, like, a quiet space and just taking 5 deep breaths slowly, and
right.
nourishing your nervous system in that way. Absolutely.
Getting out at lunch, that's
Mhm.
gonna be great. Right after you eat, you can get outside and you can walk for a little bit, just clear your head. But also, what you're gonna do is you're gonna, pull that glucose into your muscle. You're gonna be able to utilize it when it's not gonna just sit there and just sit out in your blood and raise your blood sugar. You really want to utilize it and use that power of your quads to be able to take that and use it as fuel. So that's really important. We see, if you haven't ever seen what certain foods do to your blood sugar, a great empowering way is to get, I think they have what's called, like, the Libre Freestyle. You can get one
Mhm.
of those. You can, now it's out to the masses and it's not incredibly expensive, but you can put one of those blood glucose, the continuous monitors on
Mhm.
for a month or more and just see. Like for me, the Chick-fil-A like summer harvest salad with like fruit on it, for me, that like really brought my sugar up and I was shocked. But it's a healthy food that for me, maybe whatever ingredient, there's something in there that created a major spike in my blood sugar. So, that's an empowering way, a tool in which you can see what foods you're eating that may be healthy, but for you aren't, because
Mhm.
everyone works, everyone's body is so unique. And that's where functional medicine, looking at the root cause, shines, because they understand that everyone is an N or a sample size of one.
Right.
All these studies are great to look at trends, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that your body's going to respond in the same way. It doesn't mean your body's going to be benefited, this in the same way. Yes, it's good to have an overarching idea of how this might impact the population, but it doesn't mean because this is going to work for this group of people that it's going to work for you. And we see that, in any medical intervention. It's just, and that's why we have consent forms, because you never know why, or who might be impacted with something in a negative manner. So, that's just the way it is. None of us have had the same exact experience in life, not even identical twins.
Right.
We don't all get the same. We're not all living in the same environment. We didn't all get impacted by mental emotional stress in the same way. We didn't all eat the same food. There's so many factors that are out there that change the way, and so much of illness is rooted in our childhood, unfortunately, and the way in which we've started out from your mother's womb to, you lived in a rural area, you lived in a city, you ate this kind of diet. So many things are why the increase in chemicals, in our area too, has caused a lot, because we know in our 40s we didn't have friends that had allergies. We didn't have
Right.
friends that we didn't. There wasn't so much mental health strain on the
Right.
population because those chemicals didn't come in and they weren't pervasive until the last couple decades. That made a huge difference on guts. Huge difference.
Yes. Yeah, and it can be we can be overwhelmed completely
Yeah.
with all the things that we can be doing and paying attention to, and the advice we could be following, and like you even just said, I mean, every body is different, and one day to the next day, your lens of life is different than mine, and if I get my blood tested now as opposed to that in the evening or tomorrow,
Yep.
how things can fluctuate. It's just like, well, what the hell do I do?
Right.
And that's why it's like, at the very least, we have to pay attention to the basics, right? Making sure that we are taking care of hydrating ourselves well. We are
Yep.
eating fully, richly, densely nourishing foods, highly nutritious foods.
Yep.
We are sleeping, we are resting. So there's sleep, right? So we want to sleep around 7, 8 hours each night if we can, because that's when we know our body repairs. Good things happen with our hormones when we sleep. And we have that chance to just give everything a break. And then in throughout the day, taking those times of respite to calm yourself as well, moving our
Yep.
bodies. And I like to say, instead of exercise, it's movement. Look at
Yeah.
it as you're
Me too.
moving your body daily and your body will respond well. And so keeping with these basics and not overhauling yourself, but just knowing that you're doing the good things as a human should do, and then decreasing your toxin load. We're all bombarded, but what can you control? Like, okay, so stop drinking out of plastic water bottles. Cheers. That looks lovely.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
one simple
that's
thing.
exactly it. One little step at a time. I
Yeah.
was completely conventional, completely to the max, 7, 8 years ago. But that's also something that I do in my practice. Is every visit we will talk about one of the tenets of health. So we'll start with we'll do like an hour initial discussion about everything. Then you'll get your labs done, and then the next time we'll talk about labs, but we'll also talk about your sleep. And I want to know everything about your sleep environment, and I want to know how to optimize that. And then what's the next thing? We're going to talk about toxins, and I'm going to give you a list of what you should start to filter out, and things that I recommend on the cheaper end that are great, like higher yield. There are things that I've learned along the way for myself and my family that I want to impart on other people. Like, I don't want this to be as hard of a journey, but at the same time, like, I want you to feel empowered and do just baby steps. Like, I
Yes.
don't want you overhauling. Like, no one has the money or the time for that.
Right.
So just doing little things over time makes a big difference. And I know people have heard that. And, we're all kind of in this comparison trap. And we've all have to start somewhere, right? We've all started a weight loss journey at somewhere. We've all started a exercise journey somewhere. But there's definitely help. So when we talk about sleep, like if you're like, oh, but I'm getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning every night. Well, guess what? That can be low progesterone, or that can be a dip in your estrogen. So let's talk about that, and we'll see, what your three biggest complaints, issues, that you're worrying about now. So yeah, I mean, this was an awesome conversation. This was just like like the tip of the iceberg when we come to things. Like this is really something that we could do several times and just kind of pick a more structured, part. But I just love kind of riffing and having this conversation with someone that works in the health field in a similar fashion, but also helps and supports people kind of in a different way, and how we can be just complementary to each other, and really, play off of each other. And that's really where we all shine, is if we can all work together. And you
Mhm.
realize that you need a few different modalities in your life to move forward, to move that needle forward. I feel like just from everything we've gone through in our family, like I just feel like people are put in your path for a reason. That's just my feeling, and I've seen that happen over and over again for me. And so you go on to the next thing, and that might be chiropractic care. That might be, we're on craniosacral therapy right now. Katie Rasmussen is helping me and my son. Like there's things that you're like, oh, I don't think I even realized that. Like maybe that's part of my issue. So as much as you can do and just kind of keep moving the needle forward is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, it's always just kind of continuing to work on ourselves because we have this one life, we have this one body, we take care of it, and we want to feel as good as we can feel, to just enjoy life, right? We're not trying to be so hard on ourselves to do things perfectly, but we want to also have fun and enjoy our time. Um, I know we're running out of time. Speaking of, and the one thing that we didn't get to was HRT, the hormone replacement therapy. Now, the question is, do we sprinkle a little bit in now just to give people a taste of what it is? And then we can schedule another Zoom meeting, air it just like this, and give people a little bit more in depth. And we could focus the whole time on that. What do you say?
Oh, that sounds great. I mean, I'm sure these days they're buzzwords, right? I mean, I'm glad that menopause is having a movement, but it sounds crazy. Why is it having a movement? Again, we're 50% of the population, and
I
we've
know.
been going through this for like how long? But no, I mean, it can mean different things to different people. It just depends on where you're at, what your issues are, what's creating kind of the most I hate saying dysfunction, but what you're dealing with that we need to improve upon in your health. So whether it's night sweats or fatigue, or for me, I plateaued with my lifting and motivation. I had a period of time where like I just couldn't get motivated to do anything, even though I wanted to move forward in this business. And then once I tweaked my testosterone cream, oh my gosh, it was off to the races. Like it just depends, and we just move along and get to know your unique self, your unique life. Are you a busy woman who travels all the time? Like, would a cream be messy for you? Would a pill be better? Like, all of those things that unfortunately there's not a lot of time in the conventional realm to sit there and really get to know you and discuss this with you. That's what my practice is now about, because I want that time. I love meeting women, I love having that connection. And it's just going to be such a dynamic relationship to know you, and get to see what kinds of HRT. Again, there's bioidentical versus synthetic, all these things, but ultimately we know from all this research that's come out there that it really matters what you're doing for the symptom that you need relief for. But there's certain like synthetic progestins or something that we will talk about that's where like all of this vilification of hormone therapy came from, and we'll talk about it next time. But that's where this whole big study that came out, and oh my god, hormones are bad and we have to stop it for everyone, and that's why our moms and our grandmas got screwed. But it was the progestin, it was the synthetic progesterone that was the big issue. It was not the estrogen. So that's where
Mm,
I just want, we can like leave it there, but that's what I want women to feel confident in, that estrogen actually is protective against breast cancer.
mhm.
It is a proliferative hormone, which means that if you were to have something kind of sitting there in the background, it will make it grow, which will mean that you actually will probably get diagnosed faster. But it is not something that causes breast cancer. Again, we'll talk about that next time. But these hormones, these three hormones, are what um, are just, we need to have our own unique optimal levels in order for us to feel well, because I could not have gone through the rest of my life the way I was feeling 100%. That's why age 45 to 55 is the decade in which the most amount of women commit suicide
Oh
and the
my
most
God.
amount of divorces happen.
Mm,
Because I mean, if I had to function the way I was, I don't know. I don't know mentally where I would have gone. So
right.
thankfully, I knew that there was ways in which I could get improvement. And it just means working together and tweaking things because in perimenopause, it's a ride. It's a roller coaster of a ride. In menopause, you can find your sweet spot and it's like smooth sailing for the most part. But in
Mhm.
perimenopause, there's shifts. I mean, there are these up and down, estrogen level kind of peaks and valleys. But again, for another day. But that's where like that's what I'm really focused on. And I love just being able to kind of sit there and have that relationship with women.
That's big time, and that is something that I know that I and so many other women are going to appreciate, is we want to have that time. It's that time, that relationship, that trust, that I'm gonna open up my world and my heart to you and spill my guts about everything that I've been dealing with, or this hormone or this symptom or that symptom, and when you say that, the rate of divorce, the rate of committing suicide in that age range because of not knowing what's wrong with me, right? It's like I've done the thing, I'm doing the work, and I'm doing the nutrition, blah blah blah, and all that is amazing to be healthy. But if you still aren't getting the answers and you're still feeling off, that could be freaking scary. And so for you to be able to take the time and dig in and get the answers and see if hormone replacement therapy is going to be the answer, and the fact that it's not a scary thing, there's different ways you can do it. um, I cannot wait to learn more about this and share the information with the audience. So one thing I'll say as we close out, there's two things. Number one is if anybody has questions specifically about anything we talked about today and or about hormone replacement therapy, because we know that this is what Lauren is specializing in and is what we're going to be digging into next time. Let's have those questions asked now. I'll write them down, note them for then to be answered next time, and we'll get right to it. And then the second thing is, Lauren, please tell us about how we can contact you. I know how I can contact you. How can everybody contact you? And also about your opening on the 14th.
Yeah, so I my practice is called Balance and Blossom. So, we balance you and then you blossom. Balance and Blossom Wellness. I will physically have a location above the Salt Spa on the third floor across from Barrel 21 and Autos on that side of North Atherton.
In State College.
So I'll be, yeah, in State College. I will be starting to see patients on the 14th. My schedule is open. You can get that either through, going through my website at balanceandblossomwellness.com. There's lots of information there about the actual practice, my philosophy, and then you can book through there. I also will be seeing patients virtually. I I would rather, I prefer to see you in person at least the first visit so I can really connect with you and get to meet you. And then virtually is fine. And virtually is fine to start off with, but that's just my preference because I just love actually hugging you and saying, I know what you're going through and I see you and we will get through this together. Like that's what I want every woman to feel. Like really, that's my goal. So yeah, I'm around. I just yeah, the website's the best way. I'm on Instagram at Balance and Blossom Wellness. I'm on Facebook. I don't have a business page yet. I'm just using my personal, but it's Lauren Feldsot Zajac. If you find Zajac and you just search for that, Zajac. Um, but yeah, I feel free to DM me any questions, anything that you're concerned about. But I'm just so excited to be able to have this unique medical practice where women can feel heard and seen, and you really can get the actual, treatment that you need and feel like, holy shit, like my life's turned around. I feel like myself again.
Whole new world, a whole new beginning.
All
That is
right.
awesome. Well, thank you
Thank
so much,
you. Of course. Thank
Lauren. This has
you.
been great. I feel like we can keep going, and this is why I think we'll do it again.
Yeah.
It's great seeing you, and guys, enjoy your day, enjoy your Halloween, have a piece of candy, enjoy yourselves, and we'll continue to be continued.
Sounds great.
All
Thanks,
right.
Rachel.